You're my biggest regret.
Maybe we'll drop her out for a week and some BLM, and I'll leave her by herself and see how she does. Welcome back to the RV Odd Couple. My name is John.
And I'm Mercedes, and long story short, we sold most of our possessions to RV full-time in pursuit of freedom, independence, and adventure.
Because life is so short, guys.
It really is. And this is actually a video topic that we kind of fought about a lot. Because, John...
I don't have any regrets, right? I mean, you can't know what you don't know. And you learn as you go.
Knowing what we know now, we would have done a lot of things differently. And our hope is that in sharing that with you, you can take that experience and do with it what you will.
Exactly.
So we have different regrets. And typical RV Odd Couple fashion, we don't even agree on what we regret. So John has his regrets and I have my regrets.
So I guess if I was to have to, which Mercedes has made me do, name some regrets, my first would be that we went too fast. We were racing to point A, to point B, to point C, and we were missing so much stuff. This country is so beautiful, and there's so many secret spots everywhere that you really need to slow down and enjoy every single day.
And the reality is there's no such thing as seeing absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So rather than being in a hurry, I think it's better to slow and enjoy the area and really absorb it. My regret is that it's easy for me to just assume that we'll be back at this beautiful location later and, oh, we'll try that place out later. We'll visit that thing next time we're here. And what I've learned after 2020 is that taking things for granted or assuming that you'll get to visit a place again is gambling, right? And so knowing what I know now, instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling kind of tired, I just want to stay and we'll see that next time, we'll see it later, I would have gone out even if I was a little tired, but take advantage of the time where we're in those certain spots. Because you never know when you'll be back.
Exactly. And to be honest, I usually have to drag Mercedes out to go do something or see something. And always, every single time when we're done, Mercedes will say, thank you so much for forcing me to go look at it. And so life truly is really short. And you don't know when you're going to have a next opportunity if you are going to revisit another area again. So far in 2 years, we've only revisited one area. We're actually in Sedona, Arizona now, and it's fun to come back. And our first trip, we were here for 3 weeks. We've been here 10 days now, and we've already visited more than 10 times as many sites. So the next one for me would be the work-life balance. It takes a lot of work to create these videos. You really have to balance out how much you're going to work and how much you're going to play. So work hard, play hard, but make sure there's somewhat of a balance. In our first year, we actually worked much more than we did explore. I'd say 90% work and 10% exploring, which burnt us out. In the second year, we've been able to kind of balance that out and find a sweet spot and know that when we turn the light off, switch the light off, it's off.
No, he said that when he turns off the light, it really needs to be turned off. Because he will seriously work until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, left to his own devices.
Well, it's the only time it's quiet in this house.
Well, but what I've found that helps is if you schedule your playtime. So if you know that on Friday at this time you're going to be doing this thing that's really cool, then it's easier to say, okay, I'm going to bust my chops on Wednesday so that by Friday I'm done with this. My second regret is not prioritizing the daily routine. Because I think if we had more structure in our day-to-day or our weeks, like if every Monday we do this, every Tuesday we do this, if we had that structure, I think it'd be easier to maintain the work-life, fun, hard stuff balance.
Yeah, because think about this. If you're gonna switch from regular life to RV full-time lifestyle, that transition is huge. You're gonna go through a ton of adjustments.
Well, and we've talked to a lot of people that are newly retired, and they actually have the same struggle too. It's kind of funny, but you know, these windows black out, and so you can't see any sunlight in the morning. It's really easy to sleep in. And when you sleep in, it's easy to feel like a total loser, speaking from
It's
personal
true.
experience. And so even people that are retired that don't necessarily have to work, it's still a struggle because you spend all these years working, getting up at a certain time in the morning, and then adjusting to that, oh, I can wake up whenever I want, or oh, I have all this freedom. Well, what do you do with that freedom, right?
Exactly.
So that's a big adjustment, that knowing what I know now, I would have implemented that early on instead of 2 years later still struggling to find some semblance of balance and routine.
Yeah. Now, this one really is a regret for me, and it is that I bought too much stuff, right, guys? You get it. You're going to do this transition. You start looking at the RV and all the toys and all the electronics and all the gadgets and gadgets, and it's fun, right? Just having Amazon boxes show up every single
It's like
day
Christmas.
But knowing what I know now, I certainly wouldn't have bought as much stuff as I had bought to start the RV lifestyle. I would have got the things that I needed for safety, to keep my family safe. As you RV full time, you will learn and find out products that you like.
And on a side note, if you guys want a regrets of the gear that didn't really work out for us, let us know.
We can do that video.
Yeah, knowing what I know now, I would have just had the bare minimum and then bought things along the journey, as opposed to, trying to have everything before we even took off.
Yeah, and the reality is, guys, if you go back and look at my tools video,
Yeah.
I brought too many tools. I was trying to prepare for everything, and the bottom line is that if you don't have it, RVers are great people. Someone in the park will lend it to you. So don't load up on too much stuff and weigh your RV down.
And so really take it slow with that gear, because you'll figure out what you really need.
What works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And
Not everything YouTubers suggest are really great products. Sometimes it's better for them than it is for you.
Well-
So do your own research.
Well, that, and sometimes the product's really good the first 2 months of using it, and then 6 months into it, you're like, this is
Useless.
junk, and you don't know. And I mean, yeah, we definitely brought too much stuff. So my regret tied to this is bringing John. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
She means it.
Some days.
Some days, that's true.
No, but seriously though, I wish I had done more research instead of on like the gear and the stuff to buy. I wish I had applied that same amount of research into places to go, because I really thought that like these magical places were just going to land in front of me on the highway. And that's another thing too, because of our size and stuff, I feel like I relied too much on the major interstates as opposed to the state roads.
Yeah, the back roads are beautiful.
Yeah, the back roads have awesome little treasures, and I wish I had done more like the state, county roads, that sort of thing. But that requires additional research.
Yes.
So the big failure on my part is just expecting things to happen magically and not even knowing where to start as far as the research goes.
Yeah, so you from point A to point B, you really don't want to rush.
Yeah.
Stop every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes. Don't rush the trip. You don't have to get there so fast.
Yeah, and a lot of times we found ourselves driving by these beautiful places.
Yeah.
So we like drove by Crater Lake. We didn't get to see by Yellowstone.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, our first rig was almost 70 feet long.
Yeah.
Our fifth wheel one is connected. We're now on a 31-foot rig, so it's a lot easier for us to be able to pull over, stop.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is I think I relied a little too much on my RV park memberships to decide where I was going.
Right.
Because I wanted to stay within certain systems and I wanted to,
Stay on budget.
Well, yeah. So relying less on the park memberships and more on the location centric. Like, where do I want to go? No matter what, where do I want to be?
The next one for me is more of a personal challenge. So, and I call this one, I plan, God laughs.
Yeah.
So I'll do all the research and take the time to do everything needed to have a great plan, right? But I need to be flexible and know that life, the one thing that is never going to change about life is there is always going to be change. There's always going to be things that come up that are going to throw a wedge in your plan. So I think it's very, very important to have a solid plan, but also know that you need to be flexible. And then the bigger part for me is to trust that what is throwing you off your plan is exactly what needs to happen.
Especially because with RVs, there's so many things that could go wrong. All it takes is one car part that fails, and all of a sudden your perfectly planned journey and all the destinations in between have to be rerouted.
Stop and smell the roses and trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
So this next regret for me, I feel bad, but it's like I didn't know what I didn't know when I first started. And you got to remember, coming from a house, the motorhomes and other RVs seemed really small. It seemed like too much of an adjustment. And so I really liked the fifth wheel because it was similar to a house.
Yeah.
But now, knowing what I know now, I actually wish that we had gone with something kind of smaller. I almost wish that we had tried a motorhome first. And I'm not trying to beat on myself, because you just don't know what you don't know. But and the reality is that the way I like to RV has also kind of changed. Before, I wanted to stay in the same place for 3 weeks, and now I kind of want to move a little bit more than I did before. But I kind of feel like our first RVs were too big. And here's what we did. We started with a fifth wheel, and then we rented a van for a week, and that kind of got me interested in the smaller RVing. And now we're in a Class C, and now this is like, you know, like Goldilocks. It's like, this is just right. I'm starting to realize.
Yeah, but it's that whole point that there is no perfect RV, guys. It's each person is going to like something different, and you're not going to get everything that you want in an RV. And also know that your RV lifestyle is going to evolve.
Yes.
Over the last 2 years, our RV experience is evolving, and we like different things, and we have different tools for different adventures, right? We love the Class C because it lets us do some things. We love the 42-foot fifth wheel because when you do get stuck in one location, that RV gets small fast.
Oh my goodness. Could you imagine if we had been stuck in the pandemic in a van?
In a van. Oh my God,
gosh,
for months at a time.
Have made it.
Think about that. So you know, it's all personal taste, and to each their own.
Yeah.
Never judge anybody what they like.
Yeah.
It's just what they like.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I went too big on the RV, and knowing what I know now, I'd go smaller. But my preferences have changed over time.
Yeah, and our last shot now is just, if we get a Class A, we will have experienced every single RV. And remember, guys, the whole point of us doing this YouTube channel is to share information with those who are coming behind us, so that they don't make the same mistakes that we make, to make that transition a little bit easier.
It's fun.
It's a lot of fun, you know, and so the more experience we have, the more experience we can share.
Well, that, and I want to learn everything there is to learn about RVs, and I want to experience everything.
This next one for me is the one that I call the grass is greener syndrome, and everybody has it, not just in RV life, but in life in general, right? Yeah. That if I have this, this, and this, my life will be perfect. I will have no problems, and I will live happily ever after. I think most people are going to think that. You get so excited about the RV lifestyle, and you think that, man, if, you know, once I start working on the road and I can visit all these beautiful places and set my desk up out on the beach and work in this beautiful location, everything will be great. The truth is that after 6 months or so, RV living does become normalized. You become used to it. It still blows my mind that we'll go into a brand new location. We just went into southern Utah. Right now we're in Sedona. Yeah. And when you first get there, it's like you're a little child looking at, wow, look at how beautiful this world is. After you're there for a week, it starts, you kind of forget it's there, right? You start taking it for granted. So just know that you bring you wherever you go. No matter what decisions you make, the progress, right, is within yourself.
Yeah.
And so buying an RV and living full-time in an RV and moving away from a house and selling all your stuff is not going to make you any happier than you are right now, but it is going to give you incredible freedom, independence, and adventure, which is why we do this.
Well, it's an inside job, ultimately. Yes. All right, so this regret, it really kind of bothers me because there's no way that I could, like, undo this. But knowing what I know now, I really wish that I had tracked all of our locations on Google Maps so that I could go back and have like a digital scrapbook, because I love scrapbooking. I love, you know, souvenirs and that sort of thing. But in an RV, they're not entirely realistic. So having a digital scrapbook in that way would have really been something that, you know, I can never go back and get that.
Yeah, and now, to be fair, I did not realize this was really important to Mercedes, but I don't like being tracked. I don't like leaving breadcrumbs of where I am all the time on my phone, so I turned that function off. So this next one for me is a complex issue. I wish we had probably kept a home base in Florida instead of selling everything and just jumping in this lifestyle. We took a big risk. Because we could have got into this thing 6 months in and not liked the lifestyle. Mercedes could have hated, I might have liked it, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And so that was a big risk. Now, you can't know what you don't know. A lot of problems will come along with, you know, renting your house out to somebody else, or there's just a lot of other things that'll come along. We haven't had those experiences, but if you can afford to keep your main residence or a home base, we highly suggest you do that for at least the first 6 months, a year. You could always sell it down the road, but there's no guarantee you're even going to like the RV lifestyle.
Well, yeah, and especially with 2020 and all the RVers that were kind of left stranded. We were lucky that we weren't left stranded, but I mean, it's a complicated issue because the RVers that have kept their house all talk about what a pain it is to do the maintenance and to keep track of it, and if they rent it, having someone manage that. But I mean, there's also benefits like with banking and that sort of thing.
There is.
We've had some issues.
We've had some issues with our domicile address where banks don't like the address. They kind of look at it as a P.O. box.
Yeah, so knowing what we know now, we wouldn't have been so
quick to sell the house. Probably would have held on to it for a while to make sure that we like the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we may still, we at this point, had we kept it, we still may have it. But then again, you don't know what you don't know.
So this next regret is one that I don't think John understands, but I think he can appreciate. And it's not learning to drive the fifth wheel sooner and not learning his outside duties sooner. And I think that, you know, gosh, I was RVing for almost 2 years before I drove the fifth wheel for the first time.
Right.
And that's too long. And
it's way too long.
And once I learned to drive the fifth wheel, I felt so good. I mean, not that day. I was a miserable wreck that day, if y'all saw that. But after I drove it, it was like it broke this limitation, this barrier that I had, and now I feel so much more confident. And I feel like, you know, it's really easy to get stuck in the gender roles of like, I'll do this stuff, you do that stuff, but I wish I had more of an earnest to learn his jobs.
Right.
Because I depend on him so much, and like even in this Class C, I don't know how to like do the tanks, so you need to show me things like that so that it's not all on your shoulders.
Yeah, and one of my biggest fears has been since we left is that if something happened to me on the road, it was really important to me that Mercedes could get Sage out of a tough situation, or at least drive to get help. And so, you know, we'll put the video where I taught Mercedes to drive right up here.
Yeah.
I was judged heavily because we had just a nightmare of a day. But just remember, and I had been trying to force her into the driver's seat for 18 months.
And I wouldn't do it.
She always would make an excuse. She always been making an excuse. And then on this day, she promised me I will not make an excuse. And it ended up being a nightmare of a day.
The worst day ever.
The worst day ever.
Yeah.
But I held her to it. Both partners need to know how to do both jobs.
Yeah.
All right. Now this one, my regret is more of, I think, a selfish one. But I do miss golf. I do miss fishing.
Yeah.
Those are hobbies that I like to do before we went full-time RVing. And so I actually sold my golf clubs before I left. Mercedes and I are together 24/7, and it's always good to have a hobby to kind of break you away from that person that you are in 200 or 300 square feet with all the time.
Yeah, no, and it's true. And we didn't realize that a lot of these RV parks would have like putt-putt. So,
that doesn't count as golf. Then I'm a lefty. I'm a southpaw.
Yeah.
So it's not so easy to rent a lefty set at clubs. A lot of clubs don't have lefty sets.
And whatever your happy hobby is, you should keep it. My regret was actually a point of contention between us, because I regret that I didn't try boondocking sooner and that we haven't boondocked more. I'm not saying that I could really conserve water that long.
Mercedes thinks that staying at a Walmart or a truck stop overnight is boondocking.
Well, I
try to tell her it's not. It's pulling off the side of the road and sleeping for a night. She thinks she's going to love boondocking, so I'm actually telling her that maybe we'll drop her out for a week and some BLM, and I'll leave her by herself and see how she does. Realize how you have to conserve water and energy and electricity, all that kind of stuff. You know, you got to be careful about dumping your tanks and where you do that. And so maybe eventually we're going to put Mercedes out in the middle of nowhere. If you guys like the idea, maybe we could raise money for a good cause or something by dropping Mercedes out in the middle of nowhere and seeing how she does. So, you know, let us know if you want that video.
Okay, no. Now he's interfering with my regret
I'm sorry.
here. Because let me be clear, I'm not saying that I want to boondock weeks at a time. I'm talking about boondocking a couple days in BLM. I'm talking about, you know, I really enjoyed the staying at truck stops or the staying at the Walmart or you know, we haven't tried a Cracker Barrel yet. I want to try one of those.
That's not boondocking.
I think it is. Okay. If you don't have hookups, I think that's boondocking.
In the comments below, let us know, is that boondocking when you go to Cracker Barrel or Walmart or a truck stop for one night? I don't think that's boondocking.
No, but I'm not saying I just want to do the one-nighters. I was afraid to even do the one-nighters. And then now, knowing what I know now, I'd like to try BLM land for like to 3 days max. I'm not saying that I want to really rough it. I just want to pretend rough it.
So she doesn't know what she doesn't know. I don't know what I don't know. Maybe she would like it. So let us know if you want that video. We'll drop Mercedes out in some BLM land for 3 to 5 days and see how she does.
Okay, and then you'll stay with Sage for 3 to 5 days. And
Whoa, you're taking the kid with you.
No. I'll rough it in the wilderness.
Not all
in
by
my
yourself.
RV,
Not all by yourself.
No, and then you rough it with the kid, and let's see who calls Uncle first, you know? There's a lot of newbies that gain a lot from these videos. Even if it's not what to do and more like what not to do, this is still beneficial. And if you've been RVing for some time, we'd love to hear one of your regrets in the comments. Remember, you could help someone else.
If you are a newbie or considering the RV lifestyle, go back and subscribe to our channel. Give this video a like. And go back and look at our past videos. Also, look at the comments below those videos. The RV Odd Squad has some incredible information to help you learn how to RV.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video.